Welcome on in, everybody, here to Thursday Night Live at Auburn University Club. My name is Nathan King, joined here with Jason Caldwell. We are thrilled to be back at AU Club today, not outside today, although it's been kind of a nice day, got a little bit warmer.
It would be a little cool. It'd be pretty dark now that the time has changed.
That's the main thing.
It would be okay.
It wouldn't be the picturesque sunset over the golf course that we had a couple weeks ago when we were outside. And so obviously it's Auburn's second and final bye week here today. Or this week rather, and so not a ton of Auburn football goings on to talk about, but obviously, Jason, we are now in the second week of this coaching search, and that's what we're going to focus on a lot today because that's what's on everybody's mind, and we'll talk about the Auburn basketball game coming up this Sunday with a huge opportunity for that team in a de facto home game, basically for them against number one Houston in Birmingham. So, Jason, to get started, I mean, look, I feel like this coaching search is maybe not been as chaotic as some of the ones of the past. I feel like we sort of know the names at the top, but at the same time, we don't necessarily know. Yeah. Like you never really know, and so all we can really do now is kind of talk about what we do know, and that is a few of the names that are on our hot boards and the names that we've been able to get a little bit of information about, and so. We thought tonight we'd just kind of go through with our thoughts on each of these guys and any sort of information that we've been able to gather. And Jason, I feel like it's probably right to start with DJ Durkin, a guy who we knew from the beginning would get a look. John Cohen said as much. He would get a look in his press conference. Obviously, goes out and the team plays really well, plays with a lot of fire, not able to get that win at Vanderbilt, but. I would be surprised, I know you would be too, if DJ Durkin does not end up in the top group of candidates for John Cohen.
Yeah, no, I think we talk about DJ Durkin first. We need to talk about what we saw last week a little bit. I thought we saw inspired football. And here's the thing, even defensively, there wasn't a lack of effort. I just thought that you had a guy on the other side that made a ton of plays. And Auburn made some mistakes and did some things where there weren't characteristic of them on defense. But I saw a team that it was a loss, but that was as much fun as I've had covering a football game in quite a while because it felt like it was actually a football game instead of, waiting to see when the next shoe drops. They answered on offense. Defense got a fourth down stop. They got the ball back. I mean, I thought there were a lot of positives to come out of that first game. Now, what does that mean moving forward for DJ Durkin? I don't know. I don't think he hurt his chances for candidacy with the way that game went the other night in Nashville. We've already said, didn't necessarily losing games wasn't going to hurt his chances. Winning games probably helps his chances a little bit, but I don't think that loss impacts him a whole lot in this scenario because of the way they played. And like I said, we thought defensively they might have some struggles because it was really more different for them than it was the offensive guys in some aspects because it took him away from what he'd been doing and changed things a little bit on that side of the ball in terms of how they adjusted during the game, some of those things. And so, players, offensive guys even said, look, he brought some fire last week. We've heard the word edge, I don't know, half a dozen times from John Cohen. I don't think there's any question that DJ Durkin has an edge, and so I think that puts him in the picture, in my opinion.
Yeah, personality-wise, we've talked about maybe leaning defense in this search, but that's not necessarily the case. You just feel like you want a young, fiery, driven coach, and that's not to say that Hugh Freeze wasn't any of those things, but it's just kind of the direction that John Cohen has talked about leaning in this search. Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, and you look at the context even coming up with a game like Mercer, you and I were talking about today, like the whole Ashton Daniels situation. These last few games, this team and DJ Durkin are being dealt such a strange hand. You cannot look at these games like any other game. You've got to look at them in a vacuum specific to the situation Auburn is dealing with. And so that's what Cohen's going to do.
Yeah, because you look and go, in a normal situation, you're like, man, we found our quarterback to finish this year.
Right.
Got a lot of things you can build on offensively, all that. And now you look at it and go, look, you have to figure out right now what Ashton Daniels wants to do. And DJ Durkin's been asked a couple of times. You wrote about it yesterday. What are they going to do? And I think Ashton Daniels has to decide that. I don't think anybody else can, because he came to Auburn hoping to redshirt and said, look, I'm going to come back here, redshirt. He wasn't here in the spring. Learn what I can. If I need to help, I can. Obviously, if it changes, it changes. Now you look at it and going, look, I mean, you're 4-6. Winning these last 2 games isn't going to put you in a playoff. It isn't going to do. It'd be great, but for Ashton Daniels now, is your plan to try to play another season, or hey, do you want to finish strong and then be done with college football? To me, it's all what he wants to do, and then you adjust from there. And hey, we talked about it today a little bit. For me, if Ashton Daniels says, hey, I want to come back, I want to try to be the starter at Auburn, I'd like to preserve another year. For me, it just makes total sense to see what Deuce Knight can do.
Yep.
Especially the way you played offense last week, the things you did, it looked like it would be a really good fit for him. I would like to see, if Ashton Daniels doesn't play, I would like to see what Deuce Knight can do and have 2 weeks to prepare, give him a game plan, and let him go.
Well, we kind of wondered what is the drawback of playing Deuce Knight against Vanderbilt. Well, it goes to show why I personally am not a coach, and because they went out there and played really well with Ashton Daniels, I kind of went into that game saying, man, what do you have to lose at this point? You have nothing offensively. Why not roll out the 5-star freshman? Well, it turns out with a veteran quarterback who could make quick decisions, that turned out to be the right game plan for Derek Nix. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you when it comes to Deuce Knight, when it comes to Ashton Daniels. Unless he comes to you, like you said, and says, no, I want to help this team finish strong, and I want to make sure we don't lose our stride heading into the Iron Bowl. Yeah. But he was somebody who came here with the intention of redshirting, with the intention of being a backup. That's not to say, whatever the next coaching staff has planned for him, but you said it today when we were talking, it's like, at the very least, it gives you a heck of a backup who's shown you a lot of promise, and a heck of a guy to be in a competition next year.
And I think part of what you have to figure out now, like I've said a couple of times, I think if you're just John Cohen, if you're Auburn University in general, the Auburn Athletic Department, you need to figure out what Deuce Knight can do a little bit before you go into next season.
And pay him a bunch of money.
Yeah, because whatever it is, whoever the coach is, you still have to figure out a roster. And now, in 15 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered. Hey, red shirts, we'll see what he looks like next season, all those things. That's not a luxury now because there's no guarantee that he will be back next season. You need to find out, is that a guy that we believe in? And I think they do. But you need to go see it a little bit, and I think it would be great to see him in action. But we'll see, again, depending on what Ashton Daniels decides. I believe that's going to be the key.
We've talked a lot about DJ Durkin just in the time that he's taken over as interim coach. But let's start running through some of these guys in our thoughts. The other, I think, most popular name from a national perspective is John Summerall, the Tulane head coach. He's an Alabama guy. He was born in Texas, but he's actually a Huntsville guy, and so went to Grissom High School. We beat Grissom all 4 years when I was at Buckhorn, but that's neither here nor there. And took over a Troy program that under Chip Lindsey just was not seeing very bright days.
Yeah.
Won double-digit games, won back-to-back Sun Belt titles when he was at Troy, and then right now is on his way to what should be back-to-back 9-win seasons for Tulane, and a linebacker at Kentucky, a guy who was a linebackers coach at both Ole Miss and Kentucky under Mark Stoops. Only 43 years old, checks the box of young, you mentioned that word, edge, defensive guy, not necessarily line of scrimmage, but that same sort of thought process of focus on physical line of scrimmage football. John Summerall is a name that we have heard for the last year or so, people saying things like, or at least when I listen to people saying things like, he's going to be a head coach in the SEC. It's just a matter of where and when. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons that this would be a really good hire for Auburn, in my opinion.
You look at him and like I said, he's only 43 years old. But you look at him and go, man, he was the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator at San Diego in like 2010. So that when he was 28 years old, he already had that. You look in Tulane, he was co-DC in 2012. Troy assistant head coach, but he was then at Ole Miss. He was back at Kentucky for 3 years, one of those as co-defensive coordinator. Then he was the head coach, been a head coach now for 4 years, and he's 39-11, and I would guess that they're going to have a great chance to win, a few of these next games.
Yep.
And, they could win. He could win 12, 11, 9, and 10 games, and that's without a bowl game at Tulane. That's pretty strong, and so I think you look at what he's done. I've known him some just through kind of interaction running into him over the course of recruiting, and he came to Auburn a few times for camps, things like that. Always seemed like a guy that, man, was a great guy to be around. I talked to people who have worked with him and played for him, and the word is real deal. And these are people I trust. They say, hey, this guy's the real deal. That's what we've heard about him, and so we'll see what it looks like. But, yeah, he's a guy that has no doubt a ton of traction right now.
For sure. And me and Jason have had, if you guys go over to auburnundercover.com, I'm going to continue to sort of have capsules on each of these guys. We're calling it coaching candidate rundowns. I did Summerall a couple days ago, and the stat that sticks out to me, if they win at least 9 games, they got to win 2 of their last 3, which they'll be heavily favored to do so, FAU, Temple, and Charlotte. Summerall will become only the 6th active college football coach with 4 straight 9-win seasons to his name. The company's pretty good there. Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, Caitlin DeBoer, and Lincoln Riley are guys who have won 9 straight games active head coaches. And so obviously different level of competition. And I do hear people who say, Power 4 experience, but there is a reason that people look at John Summerall and say he's ready to take that jump to the next level.
Yeah, and like I said,
you can only have so much success.
Well, it's about wins. It's also about personality. It's about how he's handled things. It's everything encompassing. And listen, we'll talk about a lot more guys before we're done. But the thing that you come back to is, look, there's no guarantee. You can hire the most proven guy you want to.
Absolutely.
It might not work. You can hire a guy that has no experience at all as a head coach, and it may be the best hire you could ever make. There's no guarantee. That's why you turn over every leaf, and that's the thing. John Cohen, we know him, got to know him really well. He is going to be very thorough in what he does.
Absolutely.
And so the interesting thing about this is, look, they're already talking. He's already talking to coaches, which is very different than it was in the past. So I think you get a chance to get a feel for, hey, what do these guys look like? Start to narrow down the focus a little bit, but it sure feels like John Summerall's a guy that'll be there to the end. Maybe the winner in this thing. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what John Cohen told you in your Q&A earlier this week? 5
already
sitting coaches.
Yeah, and I think a couple more probably added to the list this week in terms of maybe people he's already talked to. So I think you look at it. There's some, there's interest in this job. There's interest from people that have been successful, and now you just go and figure out the right fit and the guy that you're looking for in terms of on the field, off the field, and everything that you want out of the program.
No particular order here, by the way, just kind of running through some guys. I'll give you the runway here on somebody that you know well, that we've run into at various places over the years. Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, a guy who has racked up a ton of wins over the last few years. Missouri, I think, did a good job of being patient with him because the record was not tremendous for a few years, and now they're one of the one of the winningest SEC teams over the last 3 seasons. He has become a popular name at the LSU search, Florida search, the Penn State search as well, and obviously a guy who spent some time at Auburn.
Known Eli for quite a while, and I think edge fits there. Normally when you think edge, you think defense, and you think a guy that coaches on the line of scrimmage. He's an offensive guy, but he has an edge. There's no question about it. I mean, you listen to him talk. You listen to him, the way he responds in press conferences or at SEC media days. There's no question that he has an edge, and so I think that's the one thing about him. You have to weigh these things going, what's it look like? You're at Missouri, you're winning a bunch of games, and people will point to the fact, well, they haven't beaten the elite teams. Well, how many times has Missouri beaten the elite teams? It just doesn't happen very often. So you start to go, okay, is he winning the games he's supposed to win? Hey, if you're at Auburn right now and you're winning the games you're supposed to win, you're probably a 9 or 10 win team, and you're having a chance to play for the playoffs. So that's what you have to look at a little bit. Is like, what are you doing with where you are? You're right. It took him a little bit to build it back up. He followed Barry Odom. Barry Odom was 25 in his career. Eli's a guy that I think the thing that maybe jumps out the most to me when I look at him is that they do it on offense and defense.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that, well, we're just going to go try to outscore you. They want to be physical on defense. They play good defense. They run the football. So it's not flash. It's not system.
Yeah.
To me, that's what makes him feel a little bit different. We'll see how much he's involved. I think he's a guy that will be in the picture. But he's a guy that's won it at Missouri and done a good job.
He is a Gus Malzahn disciple, but not his own play caller.
Very different.
And is doing things much differently. The candidate profile that I did today was a guy who just blew me away and impressed me a bunch. The more research I did on him, Brent Key at Georgia Tech. I mentioned him when we posted our thoughts for subscribers a few days ago, kind of as the sleeper. I was like, make sure you keep an eye on Brent Key, and then you and me and Christian as well sort of corroborated some things over the course of the day, and it's like, I think Auburn is interested in him. Now, of course, you would be. They're a team that's barreling toward the college football playoff. They probably either have to win the ACC title or beat Georgia in order to get in. They're number 16 right now. But Brent Key is a offensive line of scrimmage guy, a guy who played offensive guard, was a 4-year starter at Georgia Tech. Spent a ton of time with George O'Leary at UCF. Was an assistant there for a long time. Became the interim coach at Georgia Tech. Actually, in his first game as interim coach, they beat a ranked team for the first time in 6 years. And so that's been the theme for him ever since then, Jason, is like you look up and you see these tweets all the time. He is 7-6 against ranked opponents at Georgia Tech. I was telling you today, in all but one of those games, he's been an underdog. Yeah. And so just having the ability, I think, to play above their competition, they have a very clear offensive identity, bulldozing offense with a guy like Haynes King. They're top 20 in most offensive categories. He is a guy that is short on head coaching experience, but jumped to the Power 4 right away and has been very, very successful. The other note that stands out to me is Georgia Tech won 5 ACC games only once in 8 seasons before Brent Key became head coach. They won at least 5 ACC games in all 3 seasons under him. So
I think the other thing, too, is he played at Georgia Tech, so obviously he knows the state of Georgia.
Alabama guy.
He coached at Alabama for 3 years, too. Was with Nick Saban.
Hewitt Trussville guy as well.
Yeah, you know he's from the state of Alabama. He knows what it looks like, the importance of recruiting this region. I think at Auburn, if you point to one thing in the last decade, for me, if you point to one thing and say, look, if Auburn had done this one thing better, how much different the program would have looked? For me, it's offensive line. Just one. If you say it's more so than quarterback for me. If you say, look, if you had gone and just gone, hey, look, we're going to be good on the offensive line. We're going to build depth. We want to be physical. If you'd have done just that one thing, I think it changes the whole direction of the program. That's what Brent Key does. You look at them and like they're going to go be physical on the offensive line. That's what they want to do. I think that makes him a very intriguing guy. He feels, I'm going to say this, and I probably shouldn't say it, from somebody who grew up in this state watching Auburn football, he maybe has the feel the most of Pat Dye. When you think about who he is, how he's done things, tenacity a little bit they do things, he probably has as much of that as any of these guys, and just by watching the way they do things.
Yeah, for sure. And you and I were talking about that today. You can have that edge to you personality-wise when you're winning a bunch of games. Yeah. Brian Harsin was very hard-nosed as well with his personality, but came here and didn't really win any games.
And it's funny because, we've taken all our shots at him. I do think that guy can coach football.
Oh, absolutely.
Brian Harsin is a good football coach.
Absolutely.
But there's more than just X and O, and as we know, there's more than just getting players too. You have to be able to do both of those things and put it in the right system at the right time and build around the strengths of your players. You look at Georgia Tech and you go, hey, we got Haynes King. You know what we're going to do? We're going to run the quarterback about 18 times a game. Okay, let's go do that. And so I think that's something. I think you look at all these guys that we're talking about, they all play to the strengths of their rosters, and I think that's a big key why they win.
I will segue to another version of basically what you just said, playing to the strengths of your roster. Very interesting guy that we're going to talk a little bit more about on our hot board tomorrow, which will be at auburnundercover.com. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt is somebody that you were talking about today. Maybe we'll have some interest in this search. Talking about playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
He was willing to turn over the offense entirely to New Mexico State coordinator, New Mexico State quarterback, and obviously it paid off with a guy like Diego Pavia. Vanderbilt will have their best season ever this year, barring some crazy finish for them, and it's been a ton of success. I think the reservation with a guy like Clark Lee is what happens when you take away Diego Pavia. You can look at his record without Pavia, and it's like, okay. But like you were saying with the Missouri argument, Vanderbilt coaches.
It's still Vandy.
It's still Vanderbilt, yeah. and there is a lot, defensive coach, a lot of things to like about Clark Lee as maybe a guy at Auburn, maybe a guy at other searches as well.
Yeah, and obviously he's a guy that's a Vandy guy, so that makes it just like Brent Key.
Yeah.
You're recruiting somebody from their their alma mater, and we'll talk about another one of those guys in a minute, Kenny Dillingham too. You got 3 of those guys that are at their alma mater. But you look at Clark Lee and you go, man, part of being a coach nowadays is figuring out what you need to do in the transfer portal to go make your roster better and to make your team better, and they've done that. When you look at the additions they've made, I mean, heck, two of the best players in this league were 2 players that were at New Mexico State that they brought in and said, look, let's go play those guys. I'm firmly convinced that if they just do what they did in the second half of the Auburn game in the fourth quarter against Texas and just go run 2-minute offense and go turn him loose, I don't know that anybody's going to beat that team. Yeah. I don't know if you can outscore Vandy if you do that. But, yeah, Clark Lee, you look at the program building, the things they've done, the difference in culture. When you win games, people come, and that's what happens. But it's a different feel for Vandy now, and he's a big part of that. And so I think that's something that you have to look at too, going, man, he's done a good job of building some culture at a place that had none before he got there.
You mentioned Kenny Dillingham. We'll go there next. I believe the youngest guy on this list, 35 years old. I guess he was, he was 29 when he was Auburn's offensive coordinator. Only spent a year at Auburn, but knows his way around. I think that matters a little bit. You mentioned him being an Arizona State guy, obviously. That's his alma mater. He did tell the team, and I will say, when that meeting was reported that he told his team he will be here next year, that was before the Auburn job came open. I'm not saying that changes anything. Yeah. I'm just making sure we're all lined up there. Coaches say all kinds of stuff. I would still consider him a candidate for the Auburn job. Simply put, Jason, I mean, Kenny Dillingham rose up a bunch last year because Arizona State was picked dead last in the Big 12 and went to the playoff.
Yeah.
He is doing a ton with a program that had not been in the top 10 since 2014. They're currently 6-3, not going to be in the playoff this year. But that young, fiery, it's kind of a theme with a lot of these coaching candidates, young and with that edge that John Cohen talked about. Kenny Dillingham is a guy that would have some friends here in Auburn, and I think Auburn is definitely going to give him a look here, more of an offensive. Obviously, he is an offensive guy, sort of a quarterback whisperer type guy, but somebody who's played to his strengths really well at Arizona State, and is somebody that I think is going to have opportunities. I've seen him come up a lot at LSU as a name to watch. Is probably going to have an opportunity to take a big jump, but it's a question of whether he wants to leave his alma mater.
Yeah. Now you look at what he's done, and Arizona State. So you look at that one. There's a lot of really good football players in that metro area, and you think about, and that ought to be a place that wins a ton of football games. Since they had Jake Plummer, that's 1996. They went 11-1, won the Rose Bowl, went to Rose Bowl, played really well. Since 1996, when they went 11-1, they had 2 10-win seasons until Kenny Dillingham last year. So you look and go, like, they just haven't had a bunch of those wins. Again, it hasn't been a sustained thing yet. I mean, this year they've dealt with some injuries, obviously the quarterback injuries, still playing pretty good football. But this is a guy that's energetic, was at Florida State after Auburn, so he's spent a couple of years there in Florida. So, again, Memphis connections, he's a Mike Norvell guy. And so that's where the connection came for Auburn because of that connection to him. Gus Malzahn, obviously now Gus Malzahn's with Mike Norvell, so it's like this big loop that we've created here. But Kenny Dillingham is an energy guy. He was an energy guy that was with Bo Nix as a freshman. Did a really good job with him in terms of coaching him positionally. He was the OC, but Gus Malzahn obviously was calling the plays. And so you look at the jobs he's done with quarterbacks. Yep. That's the thing that probably stands out as much as anything is, he had a freshman last year and led him to the playoffs, and it came within a whisper of beating Texas in Atlanta to make it to the semifinals. And so, interesting guy for sure.
Another young offensive name, and this will kind of round out what we believe to be the core group of potential candidates here. Somebody else you know very well, people who've been around Auburn know very well, Rhett Lashley. Another guy who coached under Gus Malzahn, obviously was on Auburn's staff as the offensive coordinator for a few years, only 42 years old, has SMU in tremendous position, has had them in tremendous position. Obviously they were in the playoff last year. Has it made really well in the ACC? We mentioned Brent Key, It's good to be in the ACC right now because Miami has been inconsistent. Florida State is a disaster. Clemson has been in a steady decline. with Dabo Swinney. I know that Rhett Lashley signed a contract extension this year. I don't necessarily think that would be too much of a deterrent if he did want to come to Auburn. But I understand the reservations here with play caller, Gus Malzahn, disciple type guy.
Yeah.
He's a young, highly successful head coach who has Auburn ties and enjoyed his time at Auburn.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me a little bit of like when me and Christian would talk about Keldrick Falk. When I said, look, when Keldrick Falk was being recruited, I was like, look, as long as you get somebody in here that knows what they're doing, Keldrick Falk's going to wind up at Auburn. It's just where he belongs. I've said for a long time that Rhett Lashley would be the head coach at Auburn someday. Just by talking to him, just by doing it. Is this that day? We'll see. I don't know. I thought he is going to wind up being the head coach at Auburn at some point. You just saw all those things in him. Yes, he's a guy that was with Gus. He's been with Gus. But he's also gone out and done his own things too. And I think that's the key when you look at him and the moves he's made. He went to Sanford and was the OC. He went to Arkansas State and did some things. But he went to UConn. He went to SMU. Went to Miami for a couple of years. Coach De'Aaron King. He has tasted football elsewhere away from Gus Malzahn.
Yep.
And so because of that, he's kind of become his own guy. And you look at what they've done. He's 36-15 at SMU. The things they've done. 2 11-win seasons. They're 7-3 this year. Again, they also do those things. They run the football. It's athletic quarterbacks that can do those things. So there's a taste of that. But they've gone out and recruited well and played some pretty good defense too. And so I think, again, Rhett is a guy that has a ton of, I think, still close connections in Auburn. A lot of really good friends that still live here. Because of that, I think it's an intriguing position for him. And Nathan, something we talked about too, and I've changed my tune on. You're talking about the ACC. Think about the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I was fully on board with saying, man, you've got a much better shot of getting to the playoffs if you're in one of those leagues. Now that it's 12 teams, I don't think that's the case. Now that it's 12 teams, those are going to be one-bid leagues, and you may have 5 teams in the Southeastern Conference make the playoffs.
Yep.
I think your chances of making the playoffs are much better in this league, even though it's a more difficult league, because of the depth of the league and because of the things that you're doing. Now, you're talking about one-bid leagues in some of those situations. I think that will have an impact.
Yeah, Miami has this weird, because of the way the standings are going right now, it's like a bunch of things would have to happen for them to make the ACC title game. But you're looking at other 2-loss teams in the ACC, Virginia, Louisville, you lose 2 games, you're done. You have no chance. Whereas there are a lot of 2-loss SEC teams. number 11 Oklahoma 7-2,
and a bunch of teams above them. There's
exactly
6 teams out of the top 11 or so from the SEC.
I think this season sort of showed us when 1 through 8 or 9 in the SEC is really strong, or at least has a bunch of balance. There's the top half of the league is absolutely going to have a chance to be a playoff team if you go 9-3 every year. And so you and I were talking about that today. That's a great point to make. Think about making that jump to the SEC. The last individual name we'll talk about here, and then we'll move on to some different topics. James Franklin from Penn State, a guy who just all he did was win games at Penn State, did not win the big games, and that's not necessarily what came back to bite him. What came back to bite him was what happened after the loss to Oregon this year, and they just decided they'd seen enough.
Not only did you lose the big game, you lost the bad games.
Yes, absolutely.
And that pushed him over the edge. There's been some buzz about him this week.
Sure.
We've heard some things. Hey, we have both heard that, look, Auburn has talked to him. I think that's pretty much it. I think it's, I mentioned earlier, turning over all these leaves. I think you turn over every stone to make sure your candidate list is who it is. I think you probably talked to James Franklin, but at this point, I don't think either one of us think he's a serious contender for this job. Many of these other guys, I think, are the guys that will be focused. But I think you try to talk to pretty much everybody. That's why you do this early. You do this early to talk to everyone you can. And James Franklin may be talked to, but you also may be talking to him about somebody else. You don't ever know. We don't expect him to be a serious contender for the job.
Yeah, it's you can find a much worse backup to your backup or something like that wherever he ends up standing on Auburn's board right now. I always said that I thought James Franklin would probably be successful wherever he goes next, just because he did win a bunch of games. And so I think if he's on Auburn's board, regardless of where he is, I think it's a decent thing to have. It's a decent maybe C or D option for you. Right now, you can do a lot worse than a guy who's a good recruiter and has won a bunch of games at the Power 4 level. Kind of some just quick notes here. I mean, the Lane Kiffin thing is like Auburn has gone to that well in its last 2 coaching searches. I don't get the feeling that is what they're trying to do now. But
again, you never say never on anything. It sure doesn't feel like it at this point.
Right. And you're going to be, I mean, he's going to be the guy at Florida and LSU, where obviously that they're going to try to throw a bunch of money at him.
And I would say a great chance that not only are they in the playoffs, there may be a great chance they may end up being a top 4 team and have a bye going into the second round, and you may be playing December 31st.
Yep.
That throws a wrench into things as well for maybe some teams.
Yeah, and then just some other names to kind of throw out there. Alex Golesh is maybe going to be the head coach of the Group of 6 playoff team this year. Like, USF has a really good chance to be the American champion and get in there. I would be stunned if Auburn's not doing their due diligence with a guy like him. It's just not somebody we've personally heard about a bunch, but I obviously he is going to be a high-level coach that program's looking at. Ryan Silverfield has done great things at Memphis. You've heard a lot of buzz about him with Arkansas, but just kind of another G6 coach on this list. And then Joe Witt Jr. Is somebody that we've had on our hot board. I think some people maybe looked at the Commanders turning over their play calling duties on defense and not letting Joe Witt Jr. call plays anymore as a negative for him, but I think it maybe opens him up to more college opportunities. He's just somebody that because of his father, because he's an Auburn guy, is extremely well respected and well liked here in Auburn, that you always kind of have to keep one eye on anytime there's a coaching search.
So I think there's some names that will obviously be involved, and so a lot of focus and like I said, wide-ranging net right now.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's some guys that feel like they're in maybe the top group of these candidates as you move forward.
Okay, so if that wasn't enough coaching talk for everybody, we will talk a little bit about Auburn basketball now in their game coming up on Sunday against number 1 Houston in Birmingham. Again, should be a de facto home game for this team, just like last year's game against Houston, which was in downtown Houston, wasn't technically on their campus. The tournament committee ended up saying that was an away game. Probably will be the same case here. Jason, we've seen this Auburn team respond nicely from that opening night scare against Bethune-Cookman, where they went to overtime. Have done a really good job these last couple games taking care of business against teams they should take care of business against. But Stephen Pearl talked about it post-game after they beat after their game against Merrimack and after they beat Wofford. If this team is not doing the little things defensively and physically and going for loose balls and everything like that. And he talked about a guy like Todd Pettiford. He's like, I don't care about him shooting 4-17. I care about him sitting down and playing defense. He knows Auburn is going to have no chance beating such a big and physical Houston team if they're not on their game when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, no, this is I mentioned today, and this is the first of what feels like about 3 weeks of opportunities for Auburn basketball. And you look at this one, you look at Oregon, you look at Michigan. And you look at Arizona, NC State. I went and looked. I kind of left them off the list a little bit today. They lead the nation in points per possession right now. So you start looking at what you're doing because that's Will Wade. They're going to be a much better basketball team. That will be an NCAA tournament team too. So you look at it, you're probably playing 4 NCAA tournament teams out of conference in the next 3 weeks. So this is going to be a great opportunity for you to see what you got. Obviously, Sunday is a huge step up in athleticism and physicality. That's the 2 things that haven't been tested a whole lot for Auburn. Bethune-Cookman, by far the most athletic team they played so far, and they had issues with him at times.
Yep.
Now you're facing a team that's really athletic and also going to be a bruising physical team. So you got to have Keyshawn Murphy healthy. He's a huge key for this team. And then this will be like I still think Keyshawn Hall is the guy that's going to be a really difficult matchup for teams because of his size and the way he plays. So. Can Auburn's defense match Houston's defense? That's what you look for on Sunday because that's going to happen from the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest factor here is Keyshawn Murphy. I mean, we've seen how different this team looks when he's on the floor, when he has that physical presence. Like Emeka Oporum has shown you some things, and I think he is going to be capable of being your backup center this season. I think he's come along really nicely, but this isn't exactly the type of team with their physicality and their size that you're going to want to have him on the floor. A bunch. Keyshawn Murphy obviously rolled his ankle in that first game. They've just sat him the last couple games. They had him in an emergency type situation. He warmed up and everything, but he didn't go against Wofford. Steve Pearl talked about it, and he'll talk about it more on Friday, but Houston's the number one defensive team in the country on Ken Palm. Rebounding is something that we've heard Auburn players say it a couple times. They were like, if we can't out-rebound these teams like Merrimack and Wofford, and they didn't do that great of a job against Bethune-Cookman, he's like, we're going to have no chance against everyone else.
Yeah.
Plus 31 against Merrimack, plus 21 against Wofford.
Yeah.
Again, these teams aren't very big, but they're trying to take this challenge to heart. And Stephen Pearl said, he's like, if we do not get a hand and a body on somebody every time a shot goes up, we're going to be destroyed.
And I think it has to come from, your other guys, because your bigs aren't going to have – you're not going to have a 16 rebound game performance from your bigs, I don't think. But Keyshawn Hall needs 5 or 6. Sebastian Williams-Adams needs 5 or 6. You look at Overton needs 4 or 5. I'm like, it has to be a group, collective effort, especially when you're shooting threes. Auburn's going to shoot threes. They're going to shoot those. How many of those? And Auburn's doing a good job of offensive rebounding. And I think some of that is because it's the three-point shot, the things you're doing. Can you do those things and get going? I think that's a key for them. Can you go be physical and rebound from the wings and do those things? I think that's going to be a great opportunity for them on Sunday.
We'll kind of close out here and look at some other games. Obviously, Auburn's not playing on Saturday, but look at some other games around the country. The game of the week in our forecasters is a top 10 matchup. Number 10 Texas going on the road at number 5 Georgia. All of us were unanimous in picking Georgia here. Texas has shown you a little bit recently, and Georgia, obviously, both of these teams trying to be in the hunt for the playoff. It keeps coming back to the same question of what kind of Arch Manning are you going to get? Looking at the numbers, he has not been great on the road this season, and Georgia's obviously a tough place to play.
Yeah, and Georgia, Nate Frazier, the things they did running the football the other day, I thought was really important for them. Alabama beat them in Athens, so they're not invincible there. They normally play pretty good at home, but I think it goes back to Texas because last week at this time, if you'd asked me, I thought they turned the corner because they played really well against that Vanderbilt defense, and then I saw Auburn just torch Vanderbilt's defense last week, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I don't feel as good about that Arch Manning performance against Vanderbilt as I did a week ago. I would be really surprised if Georgia doesn't win this game, and I think the physicality side of that and the depth side of it probably makes a difference for them.
Oklahoma at number 11, Oklahoma at number 4, Alabama. Obviously, Oklahoma needs this game to stay in the playoff race. They went on the road and beat Tennessee. They are coming off of a bye week, I think is really important. Obviously, they're still trying to make sure John Mateer is 100% healthy. This game is, the more I look at this one, this is a little more interesting to me than I kind of thought it would be on first glance. As Christian pointed out before we got rolling, R. Mason Thomas, the Oklahoma star pass rusher, is questionable. But if Alabama can't get back to running the ball consistently, Ty Simpson's a great quarterback, but this is the best defense Alabama's faced all season, maybe will face all season. I'm not sure it's even going to be close. And so Oklahoma has the ability defensively to muddy up a game in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and you look, and something that's interesting a little bit from this Alabama team is that they've allowed 16 sacks. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's 58th nationally. You wouldn't think that would be the case for this team because, you look at it and go, they've thrown the ball, doing all these things. They have allowed not only 16 sacks, they've allowed a bunch of pressure. If we know anything about Oklahoma and Brent Venables, they're going to bring some pressure, and they're going to blitz. And I'd be really surprised if they don't try to get after him early and see what happens. Now, you might give up a play or two. The question for me is, can John Mateer run the football?
Yep.
We have seen the kryptonite for Alabama's defense over the years being the quarterback that adds something in the run game. Jackson Arnold did it against them last year. They were physical and just said, we're going to run downhill against you. Can he make some plays in the run game? In Tuscaloosa, we saw Oklahoma in person.
Yeah.
Their defense got after Auburn's offense, but I think it was more self-inflicted in what Auburn was doing and not trying to run the football at all. I thought Auburn had a lot of opportunities for plays in that game. As many sacks as they gave up, there were still that many guys running open that they just didn't make plays on. I think because of that, I think Alabama makes some plays, and I don't know that it takes a whole lot to win that game because I just don't think Oklahoma goes scores a bunch.
That Auburn loss to Oklahoma features, in my opinion, maybe one of the most pivotal plays of the season for Auburn because I think if Jackson Arnold makes that throw to Cam Coleman, I think things maybe turn out a lot differently in that game, and we see what happens after that. And so Auburn left some plays on the table. The other really interesting one in the SEC this week, Arkansas at LSU. The more I look at this one and think about this one, we were talking about before we got rolling, I don't know how much Florida and LSU have left in them
Yeah.
this season in terms of effort to give. And Arkansas's team is going to go score a bunch of points no matter where you play them. And so that will be interesting as well. We will close out now with our favorite segment of the week every single week. We'll bring in our, I guess, producer would be the right word for it.
Say whatever you want.
Bear Jr. Patrick Bingham is here to provide his sexy pick of the week. Patrick, what do you have for us this go around?
Well, as you know, we've been hitting around a bunch of the conferences, but the place we haven't gone yet is, well, actually, maybe we have gone to Conference USA, but one of the top games in Conference USA this week, let me pull up the graphic, is Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State. Could Kennesaw State go to 10 wins? They joined FBS last year. They were really bad last year. They fired Brad Bohannon, but with the new coach, they're obviously having a really solid season. Of course, Jacksonville State took Charles Kelly from Auburn. Jason, I think, didn't you visit Jacksonville State this summer?
Yeah, I went up there this spring and then hung out with Charles Kelly and Deshaun Davis and got a tour of the facilities, did all that stuff. And this is a first place. I mean, this is the two first place teams in that league playing with a whole lot on the line. What you got, Patrick? What do you think?
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I think I'll go with Hootie Hoo. I'll go with the Owls on this one. They're having a really great season. We'll see how they can pull it out. But, I mean, both teams have been really good this year. This is probably also your Conference USA championship game. Liberty, which is kind of the perennial pick, has had a terrible season. So,
there's no way I'm picking against Charles Kelly in the Gamecocks. I'm not doing it. Cam Cook, I don't know if he's still leading the nation in rushing. He's up there. He's at 1,100 yards. They don't throw it a ton, but they run the football and get after it. This game may be the shortest game in NCAA this year because both these teams will run the football a whole lot. So I'm going at Gamecocks. I got to.
I think when you look at a big game like this, you mentioned how well they can run the ball. They can also stop the run really well. Top 50 run defense nationally for Jacksonville State. That's including everybody. So I don't know necessarily how that stacks up in the group of six. It's probably pretty solid. We knew Charles Kelly would do a great job. Over there, and so far has this season. So thank you for that pick, Patrick.
Good game.
And just in case, I might have something next week. Our sexy game of the week next week is going to be Montana State, Montana. Montana is undefeated.
For all the while,
Montana State's having a good year.
The best game nickname ever. We get
You want to
Christian.
slide in
The
and
brawl,
give us your
the brawl
thoughts?
of the wild, though. That's it. So we'll have more on that one for sure.
Yeah, we can talk about it next week. But Patrick, I'm glad you got it on your segment since you won't be here next week or something. I don't know what your schedule is, but we'll talk about the game next week on the show.
That's it.
For sure. Do not worry about that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot of it for sure.
we'll get a Christian cutaway with the
Bobcat.
With the Bobcat making his pick. Thank you for that, Patrick. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to this edition of Thursday Night Live. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope our technical stuff with the Wi-Fi, hope everything was cruising right along. And we talked a lot about Auburn's coaching candidates here today. If you want more information on that, we're doing a bunch of stuff every single day at auburnundercover.com. Still running a 60% off promo, as we sort of teased. We'll have a hot board in the morning, Jason and I, with some updates on different guys, like I mentioned as well. We're going to continue to have individual looks at these coaching candidates as well. And then a huge basketball game on Sunday for Stephen Pearl's team. And then the football team plays Mercer, and then the Iron Bowl after that. So
it's racing by.
It is racing by, and it is the crossover time as well with basketball and football. And they'll have a new coach before you know it. Football will as well. And so thank you so much again, as we say every week, to our sponsor here, AU Club. Nice little backdrop here today with the
trophy.
The trophy
case behind us.
None of these are ours. They are theirs though. And so Jason, tell the fine people about what you can get here at AU Club. The only thing I regret about tonight is that we were not near the kitchen and not near the eating area.
Yeah, we get to be in the nice clubhouse area tonight, locker room area. But no, it's an awesome place. Great restaurant, unbelievable food, and so it's one of the, I won't say it's a hidden gem because people know about it for sure, but definitely come check them out because, look, membership price is very reasonable for a place like this, championship golf course, everything you're looking for, gym area, getting a little too cool for the pool, so you'll be back to that next summer as well. But come check them out, AU Club here, located in the heart of Auburn. And, hey, if you live outside the area, trust us, come talk to them. They might have a deal for you to come play a little golf here every now and then when you're in town. So Check them out, AU Club. We appreciate them for having us out here once again.
Absolutely. Tell them that Auburn Undercover sent you and they'll hook you up. So for Jason Caldwell, I'm Nathan King, Patrick Bingham behind the camera working his magic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Head over to auburnundercover.com. We'll talk to y'all soon.